Hi, this is Phil Shapiro. I have finished reading a really wonderful new book, A $500 House in Detroit. Rebuilding an Abandoned Home in an American City by Drew Philp. When I read this book, I was struck. Here's a young man who went to the city because he wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if he could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when he had come to die, discovered that he had not lived. Let's meet Drew Philps. Oops, here it comes. Let's meet Drew Philps. Right here. Drew Philp work has been published both nationally and internationally and has appeared in publications including BuzzFeed, The Guardian, and the Detroit Free Press. He lives in Detroit with his dog, Gratiot. Gratiot, Gratiot, I guess. This is from the flap of the book, a talented young writer's account of buying a ruined house in Detroit for $500, fixing it up, and in the process, participating in the grassroots rebirth of the city itself. This is also from the flap of the book. Drew Philp, an idealistic college student from a working-class Michigan family, withdraws from the comforts of life on a university campus in search of a place to live where he can make a difference. He sets his sights on Detroit, the failed metropolis of abandoned buildings, widespread poverty, and rampant crime, a complicated source of national fascination often stereotyped and little understood. Arriving with no jobs, no friends, and no money, Philps is naively determined to fix the huge broken city with his own hands on his own terms. A year later, he saves up and buys a ramshackle house for $500 in the East Side neighborhood known as Poletown, and he moves in. Philps gets what he pays for. The roomy Queen Anne he now owns has been abandoned for a decade and is little more than a clapboard shell on a crumbling brick foundation filled with heaping piles of trash, including most of a chopped-up minivan, and missing windows, heat, water, electricity, and a functional roof. The landscape of the surrounding neighborhood resembles an urban prairie, overgrown fields dotted with houses that haven't been demolished or burned to the ground, some of them well maintained by Detroiters who have chosen to remain in the city, but many, like the Queen Anne, left vacant and in complete disrepair. I grabbed a couple of quotes from this book. The narration really pulls you in. This guy's a really good writer. On my stoop, I met a man named Zeno, who was a crack dealer. We had little in common, but became friends out of habit and proximity. Our floating schedules aligned. He had a difficult time understanding what I was doing in a place like that. So did I. But I'd learned something by facilitating poetry workshops in prisons over the previous couple of years. When you have little in common with someone and you are forced to interact, you talk about what you do have, big stuff, God and man, war and love. Things get deep pretty quickly, and it often creates bonds not easily broken. And then this part of the book was really interesting, where he's comparing Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Detroit. And this reminded me a lot of my experiences. I was working in the Arlington Public Schools 15 years ago. I was working in an affluent school called Tuckahoe and a less affluent school called Hoffman Boston. And sometimes when a teacher from one school called me at the other school, it felt as if I was getting a phone call from a different country. And it forced me to think deeply about those issues of economic disparity. Commuting between the desperate poverty of Detroit and the cosmic wealth of the university had made me sick, gave me economic jet lag of the conscience. Isn't that wonderful writing? The explosive inequality was eating me from the inside. Detroit was among the poorest cities in the United States and located only 45 minutes away from Ann Arbor, one of the richest. The University of Michigan, a public school, costs more to attend for an out-of-state student than the average American makes in a year. I'd begin to think of them as different worlds, and having a foot in each was taxing on my view of the country that placed them so close together, and disrupting from my love of the university that had seemed to insulate itself from the desperation just down the street. And then I love how the sections of the book become kind of philosophical. Yet in a way, the house didn't own me at all. The house was me, and I was it. I put all myself into this once living building. It was my other, an extension of my body, my being, my soul. It wouldn't be that way if I'd just bought it new. I wasn't building a portfolio or an investment. I was building a shelter, a necessity of life, and by extension, myself. It took everything I had, everything I learned, everything I knew, all the space in my brain and my muscles. It didn't own me any more than my body owned my mind. It's said that C.S. Lewis once wrote, "You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body." So for me, this book, it really has some parallels to Henry David Thoreau's Walden. And those of you who are astute noticed that I was quoting from Walden in the very beginning of this book review. So for high school English teachers, I would suggest for you to assign this book at the same time as you assign Walden, and have some of your students compare and contrast. Don't forget to contrast. Compare and contrast some of these two writings. There's one other little section here. I just love this piece here. My big project for the summer was the chimney. It was also time to meet the neighbors, but I was feeling less sure about that. Part of the reason the winter had been so tough was because I was still trying to find my place in everything. Constitutionally shy, I needed to force myself to meet the people who lived around me, not slip in and out of the house. I needed to slowly and respectfully add my voice to the chorus of what was an already functioning community. I figured my best bet was with a garden. So, just like Henry David Thoreau has lots to say about nature and human beings, there's some of those same themes right here. Compare and contrast. A $500 house in Detroit. I would say this is a top-notch book. Really well written. Very engaging. Lots of food for thought. I'd like to see a lot of high school students reading this. And whoever else. If you like my book reviews, you can go see a collection of them at sites.google.com, site/Phil Shapiro book reviews. I made the screencast. If you're curious, I made the screencast using a free software called Simple Screen Recorder. I have a Lenovo T410 laptop. I bought it secondhand on eBay. I use Linux Mint. The audio, this very nice audio, is recorded to my Olympus digital audio recorder. My video over here is with a Logitech webcam that I love. And those are available on eBay. They sell for about $30 to $60, a Logitech webcam on eBay. Or new, it costs like $75 to $100 or less. I use this software here on this laptop called GUVC View. Here's my contact information if you'd like to be in touch with me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It doesn't cost any money. Anybody who has a Gmail account can have a YouTube channel. And you don't have to make videos to have a YouTube channel. I can have a YouTube account. You don't have to have a YouTube channel. Just have a YouTube account and then go and subscribe. And that's one extra vote of confidence, and it costs no money. You can subscribe to my YouTube videos. You can comment on the videos. I also have a Patreon page, patreon.com, Phil Shapiro. This is what it looks like. And Patreon's real fascinating, where people can donate just a small amount of money or something more than a small amount of money. It's a monthly pledge to support creative people that you like to support. So if you would like to practice your skills at Patreon, by all means, practice on me. Until next time, this is Phil Shapiro.